Science, Forces in Everyday Life, Part 1. Please look in your science book. Look at pages 82 to 88. Turn to page 82. Resultant force. We do many activities in our daily lives. In our activities, we need to exert or put forces on objects. E.g., we put force to open and close doors, and we put force to grab objects. The forces that we exert can act in the same or in opposite directions, and they can make the objects move. All these forces put together is called a resultant force. Let's try this. How are forces acting on the objects? Tick the correct statement. The kids are playing tug of war. What way is the force going? Is it going in the same direction or the opposite directions? Okay, it's going the opposite directions because these kids are pulling this way and these kids are pulling this way. So that means the forces are going in opposite directions. Number 2. The kids are pushing a wheelbarrow. So is the force going in the same direction or in opposite directions? It's going in the same direction because the kids are pushing in this direction and the wheelbarrow is moving in this direction. So it's the same direction. Number 3. Same direction or opposite direction? 2 horses are pulling a cart. Same direction. Okay, it's the same as this, but the horses are not pushing the cart, they are pulling the cart in this direction, and the cart is moving in this direction. So it is same direction. Number 4. The kids are moving a cupboard. So same direction or opposite directions? Again, it's same direction. So this little girl here, she is pulling this cloth and the cupboard will move this way. This little girl is pushing the cupboard this way, so the cupboard will go this way. So it's the same direction. Turn to page 86. A resultant force is the sum of all forces acting on an object. To get the resultant force, we need to know the magnitudes and directions of all the forces acting on an object. There are three cases. Case 1. Two or more forces acting on the same object in the same direction. The resultant force is more than 0. Resultant force greater than 0. The object moves in the same direction as the force. The object moves in the same direction as the forces. Force 1 equals 20N. Force 2 equals 30N. Resultant force equals 50N. N means newtons, and that is how we measure force. Temperature is measured in degrees. Angles, they're also measured in degrees. Distance, centimeters, miles, millimeters, kilometers. But force is measured in newtons. Finding the resultant force. The resultant force is the sum of all forces acting on the object. Force 1 is pushing in this direction. Force 2 is pushing in the same direction. Force 1 plus force 2 equals the resultant force. 20 newtons plus 30 newtons equals 50 newtons. And the resultant force is both of these forces added together. The object is moved to the right by a resultant force of 50 newtons. Turn to page 87. Case 2. Two forces of different sizes acting on the same object in the opposite directions. The resultant force is more than 0. Resultant force greater than 0. The object moves in the same direction as the bigger force. Force 1 equals 50 newtons. It's pushing in this direction. Force 2 equals 20 newtons. And that's pushing in this direction. Resultant force equals 30 newtons. So this log of wood will move in this direction with a force of 30 newtons. Finding the resultant force. The resultant force is the difference of the two forces acting on the object. Force 1 is pushing in this direction. Force 2 is pushing in the opposite direction, going this way. So force 1 minus force 2 equals the resultant force. 50 newtons minus 20 newtons equals 30 newtons. Okay, so here is the difference of 30 newtons, and it's pushing in the same direction as force 1. The object is moved to the right by a resultant force of 30 newtons. Turn to page 88. Case 3. Two forces of the same size acting on the same object in the opposite directions. The resultant force is equal to 0. Resultant force equals 0. The object will not move. Force 1 equals 40 newtons. Force 2 equals 40 newtons. You can see here both forces are the same, but they are pushing in opposite directions. Resultant force equals 0 newtons. Finding the resultant force. These two forces will cancel out each other. So we see here force 1 is pushing to the right, force 2 is pushing to the left. Force 1 minus force 2 equals the resultant force. 40 newtons minus 40 newtons equals 0 newtons. The resultant force is equal to 0. The object will not move. Science fact. Newton, N, the unit of force, is named after an English scientist, Sir Isaac Newton. He was the one who discovered the theory of gravity. He also studied about forces and motion of objects. Homework. Copy these results into your science book. Take photos and send to the science classroom. So we have an experiment here. But unfortunately, we can't do the experiment because we are on a video lesson. So just copy these answers into your science books. It's page 83, page 84, and page 85. I will put these 3 pages with the answers into the Google Science Classroom. That's all from me for this science lesson, and I will see you in the next lesson. Bye!